real poor, so. Sit. All right. Who is here for the prosecution? You want to stand up? Maybe you tell me that? Outstanding. All right, are you ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Permission to move freely by the will.
Absolutely, please.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Avery Kampfmueller. Anger, revenge, death. These are the three ingredients that will hopefully put the defendant behind bars. Anger. You will hear from Sergeant Houston that Mr. Pratt was very angry with Officer Thompson when he was arrested for having a pocket knife while on base. Revenge. Sergeant Houston will also explain that the first thing that he thought about was the fight between Sergeant Houston and the defendant when he found out that Officer Thompson was killed. Death. Dr. McKenna will explain that Officer Thompson's death was directly related to Mr. Pratt speeding and hitting him with his car. With this evidence present, ladies and gentlemen, there should be no doubt in your mind that the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's here for the defense?
Kevin Craig, Your Honor.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Permission to move freely by the will.
Absolutely, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, doing time caused the crime. Good morning. My name is Kevin Craig, and I am here to represent the defendant, Mr. Aaron Pratt. As you have heard, the prosecution throughout the trial is going to say that the death of Officer Thompson was caused purely out of revenge and anger. This is not the case, however, as the death of Officer Thompson was the result of sleep deprivation and hunger. During Mr. Pratt's time in jail, he received very little sleep and no food. I ask you, the members of the jury, to find my defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter and not first-degree murder. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kampfmueller, are you ready for your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call Dr. Catherine McKenna to the stand.
Dr. McKenna, step forward, please.
Good morning, Dr. McKenna.
Good morning.
Can you please tell the court what you're an expert in?
I'm an expert in forensic pathology.
And what is forensic pathology?
Forensic pathology is a field of medicine concerned with determining the cause of death.
And what was the first test that you performed on Officer Thompson?
I tried to find a match between the metal fibers found on Officer Thompson and an unknown source.
And what did you find when you tested the metal fibers?
I determined that the metal fibers from the defendant's car matched the metal fibers found on Officer Thompson's uniform.
And was there anything else that you tested?
I also looked at various wounds on Officer Thompson, such as on his head and his stomach.
And what did you conclude from your examination?
I concluded that when the car hit Officer Thompson, it was going about 55 to 65 miles per hour. I came to this conclusion because of the deep incisions on his head from blunt force trauma and by how far he moved when he was impacted from the collision.
Okay, Your Honor, I would like to present Exhibit A, which will also be presented on the smartboard. This is a scene of what the crime scene looked like. Please explain that, Dr. McKenna.
Yes, as you can see, the body of Officer Thompson moved approximately 100 feet away from the car. He's also covered with some very deep wounds on his stomach and to his head.
And what was your final decision as the cause of death?
I concluded that the cause of death for Officer Thompson was homicide due to blunt force trauma caused by the collision of the car with his body.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Excellent. Would the defense care to cross-examine, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Excellent.
Dr. McKenna, you only tested Officer Thompson's body, is this correct?
Yes,
So even though Mr. Pratt was tired and extremely hungry when he was driving, you never examined him to see if this would have any effect on his driving?
correct. I only examined the death, not the wound.
Fair enough. But from your experience, can you admit that extreme hunger can affect the body in strange ways?
Yes, low blood sugar can be very dangerous, and the body can respond to it in many different ways.
Thank you. And is being short-tempered, nervous, confused, and afraid ways the body reacts?
Yes,
Could these symptoms have affected Mr. Pratt's driving?
yes,
Thank you. No further questions.
Hi. Oh my God, that hurt. Yes. Where's my?
Somebody check her blood sugar.
Have you had lunch? It's a comedy.
Are you okay?
Last time there was that much excitement, I was sending somebody in the electric chair.
High five. Just remind me there's
Hey,
stairs.
Mueller, you're next. Do you have anything?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call Sergeant Jacob Houston to the stand.
Please. Morning. Please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What is your current occupation, Mr. Houston?
I'm a sergeant at Quantico Military Base.
And how long have you been associated with the department?
Well, I've been with the department for about 15 years now. I spent 9 years as a security officer and the past 11 as a sergeant.
And what happened on base on the morning of November 15th, 2013?
Well, I received a small threat to security because the local crime in the area. To make matters worse, our security system was down and the Legal Studies Academy was visiting the base at that day.
And what did you do to solve this problem?
Well, I made sure that all of my best officers were on duty, especially my head guy, Keith Thompson. I worked with him for about 9 years, so I knew how reliable he was and how professional he was.
And when you checked in on Officer Thompson, what did you see?
Well, I saw Officer Thompson was searching a man's backpack, who I later found to be the defendant, Aaron Pratt. And as I got closer and closer, Officer Thompson pulled the pocket knife out of Aaron Pratt's back.
And what did you do next?
Well, after I saw him pull out a pocket knife which violated security rules, Officer Thompson informed me that Mr. Pratt would have to be arrested. And I saw Mr. Pratt just get very, very furious and angry with him.
And how did you feel about the situation?
Well, since Mr. Pratt was acting so violently towards Officer Thompson, I felt that it would be better if I took Mr. Pratt to jail instead of Officer Thompson.
And when you arrived at the jail, what happened?
Well, it's standard procedure if someone arrives to the jail after 4 p.m. that they have to stay overnight. And since we arrived at 4:30, Mr. Pratt had to stay in the holding cell with about 10 other people.
And how did you react when you found out about Officer Thompson's death?
I was very astonished to hear that what Mr. Pratt had done to him. Everything just kept running through my mind. How mad Mr. Pratt was. How angry and violently that he was acting towards Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson was such an honorable officer.
Thank you. Your Honor, no further questions.
Excellent. Defense, you are up.
Thank you. Sergeant Houston, you arrived at Prince William County Jail at 4:30 p.m., is correct?
That's correct.
And because you arrived so late, Mr. Pratt had to stay overnight.
Yes.
So you can also not give Mr. Pratt any food during this time, correct?
Yes, it's a standard procedure that if the inmates come into jail after 4 p.m. that we are not allowed to give them any food.
Okay, and were there 10 other people in the cell with Mr. Pratt?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, I would like to present Exhibit B to the witness and the jury. Is this a correct representation of the holding cell Mr. Pratt was in?
Yes, that is correct.
Would you say that with 10 other people in this small space, it would be hard to sleep through the night?
Yes, that's possible.
Thank you. So the conditions at the jail made Mr. Pratt sleep deprived and extremely hungry.
It's certainly possible.
Being a police officer, would you advise someone to drive under these conditions?
No, because it can become a very dangerous situation.
Would you say the death of Officer Thompson was a dangerous situation?
Yes, very much so.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, are you finished or do you need to call another witness?
No, Your Honor, the prosecution will rest.
Excellent. Defense, it is your time.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Mr. Aaron Pratt to the stand. Good morning, Mr. Pratt. What is your current occupation, sir?
I'm a history teacher at the Legal Studies Academy. I've been so for the past 4 years.
Okay, and why were you on the Quantico military base field trip?
Academy coordinator Ms. Phillips needed an extra chaperone, And I said yes, because I never had the opportunity to go before.
Cool. So what happened when you first arrived at the base?
Well, Ms. Phillips ordered me to start getting the kids through security while she collected lunch vouchers.
Okay, and then what happened next?
Well, as we approached security, one of the officers explained that the system wasn't working properly. And because of this, we had to use a handheld device to check everybody, and there were no problems.
Okay, and then what happened towards the end of the tour?
Well, an officer named Keith Thompson came to me and asked if he could search my red backpack. Since the security system was down, I thought this was a reasonable request, so I allowed him.
Okay, and what did he find in your bag?
A pocket knife.
Why did you have a pocket knife in your backpack?
Well, the weekend before this field trip, me and a couple friends went out fishing, and I just forgot to take it out.
Okay, it's understandable. But what was the officer's reaction?
Well, the officer told me that he'd have to arrest me and take me to jail to be processed. He didn't end up taking me though. Officer Jacob Houston escorted me instead.
Okay, and then what happened at the jail?
Well, as you heard before, I had to stay overnight in a holding cell with 10 random people, not all nice people. And because of these conditions, I only got about 2 hours of sleep, and I wasn't allowed to eat at all.
Okay, and then what happened after you were released?
Well, I didn't have a way of getting home, so I needed to rent a car. And after I left the rental shop, I realized that I didn't have my phone with me. So at first I thought I left it at the jail, but then when it wasn't there, I had to go back to the Quantico base to look for it.
Okay, and what happened when you went back?
Well, the light at the corner of the base was turning yellow, and I was in a hurry, so I quickly tried to make the light. And after doing so, I realized that I hit something. And when I stepped out of the car, I couldn't believe that I ran over Officer Thompson.
Okay, and then who did you call after you hit Officer Thompson?
Well, I called 911 because I was concerned I didn't want anything bad to happen to Officer Thompson.
Thank you. No further questions, John.
Excellent. Sir?
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, you were extremely angry at Officer Thompson, weren't you?
Yes, but who wouldn't be?
And after you arrested, didn't you yell, "This is absolutely ridiculous" to Officer Thompson?
Yes.
And because of the arrest by Officer Thompson, you experienced numerous inconveniences, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And some of these included sleeping in the overnight at jail, having to go out of your way to rent a car, and losing your phone, correct?
Yeah, it got me pretty upset,
Well-
obviously.
But were you still mad on the morning you left the jail?
I mean, a little, considering that I was starving and dead tired.
So you were still angry about the situation with Officer Thompson?
I guess you could say that, but anyone would feel this angry or bad if they were as tired or hungry as I was.
And is it true that after you called 911, you left the scene?
Yeah, mainly because I was in shock.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Can I get that done?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Very honored.
What's up next for the defense? You have any further witnesses?
Yes, sir. The defense calls Mrs. Angelique Phillips to the stand. Good morning, Ms. Phillips.
Good morning.
What is your current occupation, ma'am?
I am currently the Academy Coordinator at the Legal Studies Academy.
Okay, and how well is your relationship with Mr. Pratt?
Over the past 4 years, I've gotten to know Mr. Pratt very well. He's a remarkable teacher and always goes above and beyond for his students.
He does. And why did you ask him to go on the Quantico field trip?
I needed an extra chaperone, and I thought that Mr. Pratt would be very responsible.
How did you feel when he first got arrested for having the pocket knife with him?
I mean, I thought that since he was the debate coach, he'd be able to get himself out of it, but that's not.
And what did you do when Mr. Pratt left?
I took them back to the bus, and I reassured them that everything would be fine, and then we went back to Virginia Beach.
Okay, and then when Mr. Pratt called you about being arrested for the murder of Officer Thompson, what did he sound like?
I mean, he was a little frazzled, but that could be understandable given the circumstances. Other than that, he seemed perfectly fine.
Okay, and what was your reaction when you found out about the charges against him?
I was genuinely shocked and immediately thought that it was a misunderstanding. I could never see Mr. Pratt doing something like that.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, John.
Thank you. Prosecution?
Ms. Phillips, have you ever seen Mr. Pratt angry?
Yes.
And when he becomes angry, is he ever violent?
Not at all. I mean, his fuse can be a little short at times, but that's just because he does so many things at once.
So his fuse can be short sometimes.
You could say that, yeah.
And does Mr. Pratt ever come to school hungry and tired?
I mean, I'm not aware of any time specifically, but I'm sure it happens. Again, he's involved in a lot of activities.
And even though Mr. Pratt is sometimes hot, tired, and hungry at school, does he still teach effectively?
Again, I don't know specifically, but I would assume so.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Excellent. Thank you. You're excused. I would ask the defense to call any further witnesses.
We have no further questions. Witnesses.
Excellent. I assume both of you are ready for closing statements.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Campfield, please approach.
Anger, revenge, death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have clearly shown throughout the trial that the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. His frustration towards Officer Thompson is not only evident in Sergeant Houston's testimony, but also in his own words. Dr. McKenna explained that the car was going at least 55 to 65 miles per hour when it hit Officer Thompson. Going this fast on a secondary road showed that Mr. Pratt intentionally tried to kill Officer Thompson. Why else would he flee the scene after the crime was committed? With this information, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to make Mr. Pratt guilty of first-degree murder. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Defense?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, doing time caused the crime. Mr. Pratt's hunger and exhaustion from spending the night in jail is what caused him to kill Officer Thompson, not anger. The prosecution's own witness, Dr. McKenna, mentioned that symptoms of low blood pressure are having a short temper, being nervous, confused, and afraid. As shown through Mr. Pratt's testimony, these are the very symptoms Mr. Pratt experienced when he hit Officer Thompson. The defense realizes that the death of Mr. Thompson occurred, but it was accidental. As Mrs. Phillips stated, criminal activity is not normal for Mr. Pratt. Because of this, the defense urges you, members of the jury, to find Mr. Pratt not guilty of first-degree murder, but of involuntary manslaughter. Remember, doing time caused the crime. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate that. Do you want me to give instructions?
Yeah, you can.
All right, I'll go ahead and give very briefly the jury some instructions. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for definitely taking the time to be a part of the system. I know it can be a burden sometimes, but I do appreciate it, and the court extends its thanks to you. A couple of reminders as you go back and take time to make the decision. It's also important. It's important to remember the defendant is presumed innocent. You should not assume the defendant is guilty because he has been indicted and is currently on trial. Innocence remains until the Commonwealth proves each and every element of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt. It's important to know that a reasonable doubt is a doubt based on your sound judgment after a full and impartial consideration of all the evidence in this case. The defendant is charged with first-degree murder, and the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that each of the following elements were part of that crime. 1, that the defendant killed Officer Keith Thompson. 2, that the killing was malicious, and that the killing was willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The criteria for the other charges will be on the verdict form, which you've now received. We'll go ahead and, if everybody can rise while the jury leaves. I know. Thank